I thoroughly enjoyed the movie, Bill, but I just was particularly taken by one aspect of the film, and that is in Star Trek II, it makes it respectable to be over 35.
But not much over, and not very respectable. Yes, well, it's the movie is about youth and old age and death and love and whatever.
And that middle age group, the way that that is handled in the movie, for instance, you with the glasses and that routine. Did you have any reservations about that aspect, that maybe it would be a turnoff to young people?
Well, it in fact was suggested not to do it at one point by some people who thought they had my best interests at heart. My feeling has always been that the more human you can make a character, the more vulnerable, the more identifiable, the better it is. And so we sought all means possible to do that.
In the case of Star Trek, the chemistry is unique. It's been established for a long time, the chemistry between the characters and the kinds of plots and kinds of adventures that we can get into and do successfully and do well. But nevertheless, when you've been apart for some time and a new executive producer comes on the scene, Harv Bennett I'm talking about, a new director who has never directed Star Trek before and never directed any of these actors before, Nicholas Meyer. The cast is the same. A new writer, I don't think Jack Soward's ever wrote Star Trek before. There's always the question of, do we have it this time? Is it going to be there again? I would say on this particular picture, I felt very hopeful from the very first day because the script was in shape. The story had a beginning, middle, and end. It had some charm. It had some humor. The characters were in focus in their relationships with each other. The cast was up and excited, and Harv Bennett created a wonderful atmosphere. He's the producer of the film. Created a wonderful atmosphere for us to work in. Nick Meyer came to Star Trek with a tremendous amount of energy and love for Star Trek, kind of almost like a kid being introduced into this world and saying, wow, I get to work in Star Trek, you know, I get to make a Star Trek movie. So that excitement was contagious, and I think it's in the film.
Of course, the movie Star Trek II has been getting a lot of publicity even before it's open because of the ending and is Spock dead or isn't he dead? How do you feel about that, Bill? Do you wish all that controversy hadn't opened up at this point?
Well, we knew it would. The moment a decision to write the kind of script we did. We knew that there would be a great deal of controversy, and we knew that we had to walk a very fine line between trying to hide it and trying to make the picture so that people would have to go see it to understand what all the fuss was about, because it's not sure. We don't know that Spock dies. The audience themselves have to go to make up their own mind. So the controversy was there. It's part and parcel of the angle that this film takes, and I think it's a good hook.
Looking back to the first Star Trek, and you saw yourself in the mirror with your Spock makeup.
Strange, yeah.
Reaction?
Well, it was kind of scary. When my children saw me in that makeup and my wife saw me in that makeup for the first time, they thought, oh, what is Daddy doing here? Because the character had to be experienced totally. You couldn't just look at this character and get any sense of where this character was going to go. It wasn't until after the show went on the air and people began to identify with the character and respond well to the character that we knew we had something. But we were taking a chance. I mean, with the pointed ears, I could have come off as Dumbo of the Year and been finished. You know? I mean, that could have been the end of that. I could have been out of work for years to come. It worked out fine.
How did you get into the character?
Well, it was a long process. A lot of conversations with Gene Roddenberry, who was the producer at that time, and with the writers, experimentation with the makeup people. For me, the makeup is very important in any role I play, the makeup and the wardrobe. I sit in the makeup room in the chair watching the makeup go on in the mirror and begin to get some sense of the style, attitude, posture of the character, the internal thinking of the character. And with Spock, it was helpful to be part of that process. The makeup was evolved over a long period of time. It didn't fall into place very quickly. In fact, we actually did a first Star Trek pilot, as most Star Trek fans know, where Spock looked quite different. And some of that footage was used later in the series as a flashback, and there was a difference in the look. The haircut was different, the eyebrows were different. It took time to refine it and get it just right.
You know, I've always loved the character of Bones, and I love your approach to the role and the way you carry it off. But you get all the funny lines.
Well, I don't know. Well, Bill gets a funny line in this one every now and then. But I enjoy doing it for that reason. I think that it's vital that there be some humor in a situation going on such. I think it kind of lifts it, or, you know, takes the heat off of it a bit. But he's been a joy to play because he's had an opportunity to do some comedy, do some drama, you know, the whole bit. Everything but a musical so far.
Maybe Star Trek 3, you'll do a little tap dance.
Possibly. Could be. You never know.
No, I have played in the past antagonists, or let's call them villains, and I realized very early in my career that a villain doesn't think that he's a villain. He does villainous things, but he doesn't act villainously. Otherwise, he would not be a human being. And when I play good guys, I try to also find some fault in them, because nobody is totally good or totally bad. This man had a distorted resentment that, of course, his villainy becomes more obvious. But he doesn't think of himself as a villain. He thinks that he's doing the right thing. Vengeance for the injustice to his wife, the death of his wife, you know.
What can we say about Star Trek and the effect that it has on the young people who love it so much?
The impact is enormous, and I do feel a sense of responsibility. I think it's a positive impact. I think it opens the imagination to ideas, scientific ideas, philosophical ideas, social ideas, and I think hopeful is the key word. Hopeful and futuristic. We're here. We exist. There is reason to be motivated and to try to learn, to do things, and to work together and to explore. For me, I think the series is one that bears up over long periods of time for a couple of good reasons. In the first place, a young child, 10, 12-year-old child, can watch the show and be entertained by the adventure of it, and then 6 or 8 years later see the same episode again and realize that there was an idea in that adventure that had to do with something that perhaps a 10 or 12-year-old might not be aware of, but they discover again later as they grow. And I think that's one of the reasons people enjoy seeing the show over and over again, to pick up on ideas that perhaps they weren't aware of at an earlier age.